Alright, so I wanted to do a video. This is a problem on the, this is in the descriptive packet that we had in class. This is number 12, where we have these time plots of the yearly frequencies of typhoons for Western Pacific and Eastern Pacific Ocean. So the question is asking us on part A to compare the yearly distributions of frequencies of typhoons for the two regions from the years 1997 to 2010. So it's a little confusing because they did mention for the years, but we're really just looking at the yearly frequencies themselves. We want to know how do the two compare to each other, and my hint was you need to draw another type of graph. So we already know what's going on, and in part B they're going to ask us to describe kind of the change over time. But in part A, what we want to do is we want to just look at the frequencies themselves. So I'm going to change this up a little bit and look at a different type of graph. And the graph that I'm going to want to look at is a histogram or a stem and leaf plot. I'm actually going to make a stem and leaf plot, that way I can just look at them back to back. So for that, I'm just going to imagine that instead of being given this graph, what if I was just given a list of numbers for Western Pacific and a list of numbers for Eastern Pacific for the frequencies? So the first thing I'm going to do is go through and just estimate where each of these numbers are in yearly frequency. So for example, in 1997 for Western Pacific, that looks like about 33. This one's maybe 27. And I'm going to keep doing that. So I've done that, and now I'm going to do the same thing except for Eastern Pacific. So I've got all of my numbers, and now I'm just going to do a back-to-back stem and leaf plot. Because I have a lot of numbers within the same range, I'm actually going to do two numbers, so 1, 2, and 3, because we have 10s, 20s, and 30s, but I'm going to put 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 3s. Oops. That way, I can do the lower 10s in one row and the upper 10s in another row. So I'll put Western over here, and I'll put Eastern over here. And now I'm just going to go through and put all of my leaves in the correct places. Alright, so now I've got my two graphs. Part A asks us to compare the two graphs in terms of their yearly frequencies. So this is where I would use Cuss and BS and talk about the center, unusual features for either shape and spread, and then I'm also going to make sure I'm comparing especially the center and the spread. So starting with center, I would say that the center, or the median, or the highest point, the peak in the graph for Western, which is in the upper 20s, is a little bit higher than for Eastern, which is in the upper 10s. You could find an actual median for both if you wanted to, but I'm just going to talk about it as the peak in the graph. For unusual features, I would say that the Western distribution looks like it has an outlier in the lower end at 18, but that the Eastern distribution doesn't seem to have any outliers or possible outliers. For shape, for Western, I would say, almost looks a little skewed to the higher numbers if it weren't for this one number here. It's a little hard to tell, but I would say just based on what we have, it looks a little skewed to the higher numbers. The Eastern definitely looks skewed to the higher numbers because we have a lot more numbers here, and then it's kind of tapering down as we go that way. So both distributions look fairly skewed to the higher numbers. Neither of them looks especially symmetric. For spread, that's where I would just compare the range for Western goes from 18 to 39, whereas the range for Eastern only goes from 15 to 25. So a little bit wider range for Western, and also Western's digits or numbers frequencies are overall in the higher areas than for Eastern. Okay, so that is how I would compare them. So there you have it.